the idea would be this: we're doing like a battle report radio send out and talking about like how the 5th MAGA Fusiliers are like coming over the hill and like the Chuds are making advances and we can't stop them. They're chanting stop the count, whatever, and there's machine gun fire and
Just War of the World style, it's that Sutter's Mill or whatever.
Brian, funny you should say that, because the whole thing would have a Mercury Theater radio vibe, and then in a Orson Welles impression that I would practice more, it would end like this. Suddenly, my eyes were attracted to the immense flock of birds, black birds that hovered directly below me. They circled to the ground, and there, before my eyes, stark and silent, lay the Chuds, with hungry birds pecking and tearing brown shreds of flesh from their dead bodies. Later, when their bodies were examined in the laboratories, it was found they were killed by the COVID virus against which their systems were unprepared. Slain after all democracy's defenses had failed by the humblest thing that God in his wisdom put on this earth. Good night, everyone. Because in Washington State we had like 1,700 cases today.
COVID stay winning.
Blows it out. It's like exploding like never before. Cool. This has been the Seattle Sucks Theater Radio. A bit we were too lazy to actually do.
Well, people know that we're famous for our production value, so I'm sure they were expecting it. Your tattoos are so deep, they really make me think.
Welcome back to Seattle Sucks, a podcast about hating the city we love.
Hey, thanks. Colin, thank you for this delicious fresh focaccia bread that you dropped off at my house in time for this recording, even though we're all alone, mere really minutes after you let us know that you can't get together because your whole family might have COVID. So thanks for the food that you prepared with your own hands. Mm-hmm. And Brian, I'm surprised you backed out of coming at the last minute and enjoying this delicious focaccia bread I'm eating.
Yeah. When I realized I couldn't get my bubble that I travel in now into your boat. But yeah, Colin, I believe you brought Greg this bread because it's Gregory's birthday. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it was his birthday. And if he was going to get COVID, I wanted it to be from somebody that he trusted.
Cool. Hey, no big deal. There's a vaccine, right?
Yeah, there's a vaccine coming. It's very real and definitely going to happen. Everybody online and whatnot, by the way, make sure you wish Greg a happy birthday. And if you see him in person, sing the birthday song to him. And in fact, Colin...
it was days ago.
Colin, 1, 2, 3. Oh. Yeah, even though his birthday is past, Greg will accept belated birthday wishes from anybody that hears this. Make sure
guys, they did sing it. They sang it to me, but I cut it out because I've never heard two people manage to sing that song in 5 keys. So
yeah, it's like both me and Colin are Mariah Carey. Hitting all the octaves. No, we cut it out for copyright reasons. Come on, Greg. Famously, you can't do that on the air.
And I am not a jolly good fellow, so that option was precluded.
Oh yeah. All right, guys. Well, it's been a week since fascism was defeated in a regularly scheduled election. How are you guys feeling?
I thought we didn't have to feel in the new Biden era.
Just been to brunch every single day. Doesn't matter if it's the weekend, just out there brunching it up.
Yeah, it doesn't matter the day, doesn't matter the time of day. Just
man. I had one half of a bagel just to spite Trump.
Greg was out to brunch on Twitter.
I was in the brunch.
Yeah, just hilariously posting his, living it up on the boat shot.
Don't make fun of my food posts.
One half of a toasted bagel with it didn't even have the parsley on it. It was the sprig that's left over.
That was the this was an action shot. It was a brunch in progress. That was part of the garnish that I just pulled out of the Bar Naiad House Bloody Mary, and I had a whole spread out there for the bagel, and there was more to come that just was not like pictured, man. All right. I don't have to like load up my plate. It's not like the buffet at Caesar's. Okay. I want for it to be brunch, dude.
All right. Well,
my favorite thing though about the Biden presidency so far is that we can believe in science again. So I got all of my phrenology equipment out of the storage unit, and I'm ready to do big time science.
Got my calipers out of storage, knock the dust off them.
Oh, I resoldered the 120 volt lead on my e-meter. And I'm ready to find out if you guys are going clear,
Hell yeah. Yep, time to party, guys. Science is back, baby. Well, we've had a week now to kind of settle in to the sort of election narratives and whatnot. We're no longer doing hot takes. Now we're doing mild takes, right? And
you are neither hot nor cold. I spit your takes out of my mouth.
Yes. Oh, man. At the very beginning of COVID, me and a bunch of my friends did like a Zoom hangout where we did trivia, where each one of us came up with their own category and questions like bar trivia style. And mine was Daniel Day-Lewis quotes, where you had to name the character name and the movie, right? Ooh. And I had that quote, and everybody did so poorly on it. And if any of my friends are listening, they're all disappointments. And they got mad at me. They're like, "Oh, who knows Daniel Day-Lewis movies?" And I was like, "Fucking me."
Obviously.
I'm doing this all from memory, so obviously me. But yeah. I don't know. Just like I said, if you're listening to the show right now, I'm very disappointed in you, all my friends. All right.
Brian, you should be very disappointed in missing out on this focaccia bread, because I don't care what it says in the Bible. This man could live on this bread alone. It's that good.
Well, thank you, Greg. I can always make more. So
I'm enjoying a chartreuse and tonic today, not because I think the ancient herbal recipe of the chartreuse is going to ward off the coronavirus. No, it's actually the quinine in the tonic that is a natural antiviral that I assume will protect me from the Colin's household incubated virus that was passed to me, no doubt, through the focaccia bread.
Well, a lot of people think that Greg's playing a character right now. Anytime me and Colin are feeling even the littlest bit sick, what is it that Greg always tell? Like, have you had your calcium supplements?
It's zinc. It's zinc.
You should all be taking zinc every day, especially now.
Yeah, Greg is a nootropics guy. Like, let's all know about it.
No, I'm an old tropics guy. That's why I'm having a chartreuse and tonic. Dude, my brain, my body is healthy and my brain is tingling.
Yeah, Greg literally believes he's not going to get cancer because he takes zinc every day. So
I didn't say shit about cancer. Okay, I know I'm going to get cancer because I bathe myself in diesel fuel once a week.
I keep telling you to use the shower at the marina, but you insist.
I said to replace a fuel tank. All right, you soak that shit into your body. I might as well be drinking it.
Well, look, let's steer this boat back onto course, back towards land.
Only I am on a boat right now.
Look, Greg, how about me and Colin in houses, which we've already established is a boat for the land. So we've had a week to kind of settle into the sort of election narratives. And one of the ones that I really enjoyed that I thought I'd bring up to you guys was about California's Prop 22, where we found out things that were already kind of known at the time, which is Obama's transportation secretary wrote it. But we also found out that apparently Kamala Harris's entire family was on this campaign. So her brother-in-law was like the lawyer for it. Her niece was working on it. She had like an ex-campaign strategist working on it. Just unfucking believable. So how are you guys feeling about this new Harris Biden administration?
Well, in other words, it was a Democratic project, a California Democratic project that passed in California, where the Democrats have political power and win elections, which is what we said last week when people were like, well, somehow, Biden won in California, but Prop 22 passed, but he lost in Florida, where the minimum wage bill passed. And the answer is, yeah, the Democrats won in California, and the Democrats lost in Florida, where they are against the minimum wage going up, no matter what, like it says on Biden's website. So it's just like that. That's how it breaks down.
No, that's actually like very funny because the Democratic Party in Florida basically told all their, sort of state electives to not mention the minimum wage hike and to essentially run against it, right? Because it's so popular, just run against it. And then, of course, they all ate complete shit in the fucking election. But the minimum wage hike went through with overwhelming support. So, I mean, it is totally true. Like, basically, the Democrats completely supported Prop 22 and Biden, so that one in California. They were against. You're exactly right. That's the perfect way to lay this out. And I think that the main thing to take from this, right, like we talked about last week, is that this economy is going to get, one is going to eat total dog shit over the next year and then continue eating dog shit for a while. But it's also going to get meaner and crueler. And Prop 22 is a real foreboding sort of element in that we're all going to be gig workers, baby.
Yeah. Welcome to my world.
Yeah. If that doesn't terrify you that we're all gonna have to live like Greg, you're not listening to the show long enough.
Hope you like the salt air.
Yeah, everybody needs to go to sea is where this is going. Well, it wasn't the only great news that came out in the last week. We also had Lindsey Graham telling the press that he's really excited to get to work now that Biden was in office. He was really excited to get to work on bringing down that national debt.
Dude, he's not kidding, man.
Yeah,
like that ain't a fucking joke. Watch the fucking grand bargain absolutely happen in the first year, meaning gutting Social Security and Medicare. Totally gutting entitlements. There'll be a lot of bullshit, but they fucking basically had a deal under Obama that, like, if anyone's listening going, yeah, but like, this is stop trashing the Democrat who won. I mean, this is what, like, the libs are like, come on, the Biden campaign was so progressive, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, fine, whatever, fine. The Obama administration wanted to destroy Social Security and Medicare.
Mm-hmm.
They put forward a robust plan to do so that Mitch McConnell was into.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get the Tea Party nut jobs in the House to go along with it. Partly that's because, like, McConnell had already, like, postured that we're just not going to let this president do anything. And so when it did come up, like, something he would have wanted to do, how much, like, he's to blame for that, I don't know, but, like, that's how that it ended up. He wasn't able to do that politically, but it was only because the crazy fucking Republicans didn't think it was good enough or didn't care because they're so racist and partisan. They didn't want, like, Obama. They bought this whole idea of obstructionism, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very bad thing that was averted because they couldn't get the Republicans in the House to do it, because every Democrat and lots of Republicans and the administration were behind it. Meaning
Mm-hmm.
they were going to ruin Social Security forever. Like the first, like, going to chop a leg off of it so that it would just inevitably slowly die over the next decades and go away. It'd be eventually torn down because people would come to hate it, because the plan they had to do with fucking with fucking means testing it.
Yeah.
Genius.
Yep.
So turning it into
always step one to
taking
get
it
rid of it.
from one of the most popular things that have ever been done in America by the federal government, Social Security by the Roosevelt administration, Medicare by the Johnson administration, and turning them into garbage, like liberal technocratic bullshit, means tested shit. Then also like raising premiums based on that, and then doing other weird shit I forget. But the basic gist was, do all these things to shrink the budget of the stuff. So you're spending less money, which is like, obviously we need more money spent on that stuff. So, but also this time around with Joe Biden in there, he's been wanting to do this shit for decades. Like, he's loved this, and he's fucking known for just wanting to go along with whatever Mitch McConnell brought to him. So watch this time. They'll get it done, but it'll be all that. Plus, they'll like partially privatize it or some shit, Like,
yeah, I mean,
they'll fucking turn it over to the states. They'll turn over Social Security in like lump sum payments to the states or some insane shit like that, and absolutely just ruin it.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is it'll probably be a combination of those things. I mean, for a long time, business, Wall Street especially looked at that surplus and wanted to get its hands on it. So I imagine it'll have elements of privatization that'll like turn your Social Security, like basically turn your Social Security into like a 401k. And then, and in some sort of dumb element, just like they did with welfare, where they turn it over to the state. Now, the thing with Biden that you kind of brought up was interesting. I was listening to this interview with Branko Markic about this, where he was basically saying that during the Obama administration, that Harry Reid literally had to go to President Obama and tell him, you have to stop allowing Joe Biden to like lead these sort of negotiations on the budget and stuff, because he just caves to Mitch McConnell with everything. Like, the second Mitch McConnell shows up, Biden's already giving him everything he wants, and Mitch McConnell's just adding on top, right? And so Harry Reid, who's not a fucking leftist by any stretch of the imagination,
one of the last older like mainstream Democrats with a functioning brain.
Yeah, basically was like, Biden is literally just a puppet of Mitch McConnell. Please stop putting him in a room with them. And I'm sure that 4 years of dementia later, that Biden's really going to be a great negotiator in these negotiations, right? But
it's not going to be. That's the thing.
It's not going to be
negotiation. Yeah, it's going to be just politics. Their only questions when they get together are going to be, how do we sell this to all of our caucuses, and how do we each spin it completely differently to our bases? That's going to be the question. That's going to be, okay, how do we do this based on how we can both sell this thing we both want to do, which is end Social Security forever.
Yeah, and I think, we're walking into this, probably the worst economic depression since the Great Depression. And, this is going to, everything in here for 4 years is going to be, ooh, but the debt. We'd love to give some sort of bailout to regular people, but the debt. Now, that's not going to stop them from handing.
We haven't heard of for years.
Yeah, and it won't stop them from handing trillions over to Wall Street or anything like that. But it'll just be for you, rent relief, but the debt. Sorry.
COVID checks.
Yeah, sorry, the debt.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening. I know a possibility. You could see maybe that happening if they were smart. They would get that. They would get COVID. They would do the grand bargain in the first few months and get like $1,000 more for everybody with it. That'd be smart. They won't do that. It'll take a lot longer than that to get a Social Security bill, but also they're not. By that time, we probably will have a vaccine.
Well, yeah, I mean, that kind of gets to something that happened today, which is, I was already extremely skeptical that they were going to do anything as far as COVID relief. We certainly, the unemployment benefit was not going to happen again. That they clearly learned the $600 was an enormous mistake. As Steny Hoyer was fond of saying, if we give people $600, then they won't just go back to work for minimum wage, and then where's the economy, right? But it's like, maybe they'll do like a one-time payout. Like, they'll just cut like one check. It won't be $1,200, but it'll be like $500 or whatever. But today,
they'd have to, if they got if they control the Senate and the House.
I don't even know that
they don't have to do shit. They'd have had to. They'd have had to. They've been saying, the Democrats have been saying for months, they'd have had to do one thing symbolically that was, like another $1,000 or something. But now that's not happening.
Yeah, and I actually think that maybe they wouldn't have had to, even if they'd won, because of the news that came out today, where Pfizer claimed that they were, that they had a vaccine that was 90% effective. And whether or not this vaccine ever sees the light of day, which is one question, I do think that announcement basically is that you might as well hear in the background the Democrats wiping their hands of any sort of COVID relief.
Yeah, that you may be right about
done.
that.
Sorry,
depending on the time frame, yeah. If they are getting that out by January, by February, even, but fuck, man, I believe it's real. I'll tell you why I believe it's real. And there's I forget now, but there's other studies that were all kind of announced this week. Besides the Pfizer one, make the biggest news, but there's other people going like, yeah, we also have news about our vaccine trials are going similarly well, and there's one about a antibody therapy for those already infected. The interesting thing about I don't know how you don't see that, no matter who you are, certainly if you're like MAGA, and go like, oh, they were holding this announcement for after the election. Like, absolutely.
That certainly seems to be online, their take on it. And
that is my take.
They're probably not wrong. Like that.
They don't want it, because if you're you look, it's like everybody else. It's like the entire Republican establishment. It's like Wall Street. It's like the courts. They all saw which way the wind is blowing and were fine with it. Especially because of the polls, everyone thought it was going to be a trouncing, and so they didn't want to be. They didn't want to change. They didn't want to be the people to upset that balance, upset what was going to happen by like having some vaccine announcement that, even a month before the election would have seemed like it was timed to benefit Trump, So yeah, I definitely think they sat on it, which is funny.
Yeah,
they fucked him.
Yeah, if it had come out the week of the election or the week before the election, given Biden's fairly narrow victory, like, Trump might have won. I think that's an open question.
Well, he wouldn't have shut up about it. I'll tell you that. Right.
And it was funny too. And everybody, and Trump at the debates, when he just kept saying, "We got a vaccine. It's going to come out any minute now." And everybody,
crickets from the actual industry or the National Institute of Health. Yeah.
Well, and everybody in the press was basically saying, "Oh, he's talking completely out of his ass. There's nothing coming."
Yeah.
And some of them had to know. Like, these trials weren't secret, so some of the press had to know. So
the health reporters, yeah. Well, and he had to know. Fuck, he probably did know. He's probably like was hearing from them. Yes, Mr. President, we're doing the best we can. It's just days away. He probably heard that like every few days from fucking Pfizer. Yes, sir, we're almost there, and they were just stalling.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. The Chuds probably they probably have a point here. We're probably going to find out now that they just held this.
Who cares? Who cares?
Who cares? Yeah,
I don't give. Yeah, whatever. They're not heroes for doing that. It's just funny.
Yeah, I think more important.
Trump got owned. That's funny.
Yeah. When I think
he sucks, and he got owned.
When I think
I'm laughing.
The more takeaway is going to be that I think the announcement of an impending vaccine basically allows the Democrats to wipe their hands on any sort of COVID relief. Now, that also
very likely.
Yeah, of what, how effective the vaccine is going to be, because it's not enough to make it. You also have to, get people to take it and actually have a plan, like a logistical plan.
Well, we don't. No, we don't. Not in America, we don't. We don't have to do anything. We just have to be able to stand on a podium and say, we have the vaccine and we're getting it out. And in some places, that'll mean your insurance companies and your primary doctor will, for those who have those things, will be like begging you to come get it. In other places, and for other people, you'll just never get it. But we will, the event in human history will be over.
Yeah.
However many more people die of it or whatever, the people who matter won't, and there'll be, plausible deniability of responsibility at that point by in the neoliberal style,
Yeah. When the pandemic in America ended on November 8th or whenever they announced Biden's victory, right? I mean, that was when it officially ended in the liberal brain. They aren't going to care about it really past that.
Well, I mean, maybe politically, but I mean, we're looking at, I mean, Utah just locked down. We're having bigger cases in Washington now, like way bigger now than ever before. So, and stuff. I bet something's coming down the pike for a lockdown again.
Yeah, so Washington
Which
just
I hope. I got 2 days of work in the next week, supposedly. So I hope I can get those in before shit closes up, because I'm not going to get paid for that shit. That isn't going to happen.
Truck commercials are considered essential industries. I think you're safe, Greg. But yeah, I was trying to see. I had the numbers here somewhere, but yeah, Washington, I think, announced it was the highest number of one day, positive COVID tests that they've had the entire pandemic.
That was a week ago, and then it keeps going up.
No, like I said, they just broke it again, right?
Yeah. So, every day it's just more every day.
Yeah. And so
it's almost 2,000 new cases today.
So in the wake of that, though, I guess we're supposed to get an announcement from the health department tomorrow, which I always love how they do this. They tease it like it's a fucking Marvel movie or something. They're like, hey, guys, big announcement with the health department tomorrow. But presumably it's some sort of lockdown, right?
Entering phase Omega
0.
or something.
0.5.
Whatever.
Yeah. But
phase Omega Man.
Yeah. But I kind of go.
Colin's the last man on Earth, and he just plays chess with a bust of Trump.
Colin just sitting there. These are the best days of my life.
Finally,
Trump sitting there.
Quiet.
Bust of Trump wearing a Greek fisherman's cap, and Colin sits there smoking a pipe and playing Go.
Yeah, just like I never have to hear Greg talk to me about Star Trek ever again.
And then the chuds come out at night.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, what a movie! That we probably have 1 month left to secure funding for that movie before we enter the new Biden era, where it's all just fun and games. But yeah, about the vaccine, though, the other thing that Trump was also not lying about was that the plan at this point is to use the military essentially to as the logistics arm to get the vaccine out. And it's called something like Operation Jade Helm or something.
Well, what's funny is that's the only way we could do it and do it equitably in America. I mean, lots of public health systems and hospital systems will get this out to a lot of rich people in a lot of elite states, a lot of blue states otherwise. But yeah, if you're going to actually try and vaccinate any substantial part of America, the military is probably the only institution that could do it.
Well, that in the at the beginning of this, do you remember at the beginning of the pandemic when all the hospitals were out of masks and shit? And it turned out that Amazon had just a warehouse, a corporate personal warehouse for them and their workers, right? Or all these Silicon Valley firms had just hordes of this shit. And I feel like the same thing would happen with any vaccine. It's Peter Thiel is going to have a quarter of all the vaccines produced in the United States, and is just holding on to it, for the last 3 years of his life to make sure he doesn't get COVID. I think that's the likely outcome too for a vaccine release here.
Cool. I'm going to take all the vaccines.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's not actually going to take any of them. He's just going to put them in a warehouse where, they'll eventually expire and just be thrown away or bulldozed over. But, because of that, 20 million, Walmart workers won't be able to get it.
Yeah.
It's going to be cool.
I mean, people, a lot of these big corporations, if you're working for one of these big corporations, that probably is how you will get it, which is fucked up. You will probably get it. If you work at Walmart, you will probably get the vaccine when you show up to work, because that's who's going to get it. It's going to be these big companies are going to flex their muscle to keep themselves from ever going into lockdown again by, making that, precluding that by actually just inoculating their labor force.
They won't even tell you what it is. They'll just shoot you in the neck with it. When you
get a shot every morning anyway at Walmart.
Yeah.
They'll just put it in with the rest of your vitamins.
part of your like clocking in at the beginning of shift.
Mm-hmm. You sing a song, you get a shot in the neck. It's cool.
Well, speaking of the fun of Walmart work, the Democrats also expanded a little bit on their plans because retail workers are going to eat shit basically for a year or two, right? Of very high unemployment in the retail sector thanks to COVID and just the economy collapsing, anyways. But Rahm Emanuel, luckily, who apparently is still alive, nobody's taken him behind a barn and shot him or anything. Rahm Emanuel was on, I think, CNN. Basically, he cited J.C. Penney workers when asked about this, but basically, it's like retail workers, like J.C. Penney workers, they just need to learn to code. So apparently, if you're not able to get one of the coveted Walmart greeter jobs where you can get shot up with the COVID vaccine, your only other option at this point is learn to code.
It's like the guy in your improv class who just keeps like trying to do the same bit over and over again, no matter what, what audience situation.
Yeah, he's Michael Scott in the I Have a Gun and
improv. Yeah, it is that. Yes. No, it's exactly that.
Yeah. I mean, one, I love that this is literally the absolute limit of the liberal imagination is learn to code when you talk about economic problems.
You learn to code, motherfucker. I'd like to see you code, you piece of shit.
Yeah, not all of us can be giant fucking failures who continue to get promoted anyways, like Rahm Emanuel. I mean, we're all giant failures. We just never get promoted like him. But how the fuck is Rahm Emanuel still around, and who the hell is talking to him?
Yeah, around. How is he still around?
yeah, emphasis. But I mean, he was the one that famously told Obama, "Fuck judges. Who cares about appointing judges?" Right. So when he complained about like the federal judiciary being an absolute horror show of freaks, Rahm Emanuel's a big part of that. Like,
yeah, he's just a fraud. I mean, that at the end of the day, like, there's a lot that's truly evil about Rahm Emanuel, but he is also just like, as a political Svengali, he is a fucking fraud.
Yeah,
like, I mean, whole electoral strategy that made him, one of the wise elders of the Democratic Party in 2006, because, whoa, get this, the Democrats took back a bunch of seats from the most hated in a midterm from the most hated administration in recent memory, and a disastrous couple of wars that were falling apart. And some of his right-wing psycho candidates got through on that basis, and then ate shit 2 years later.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, Emmanuel was like Obama's campaign strategist, right? He was doing apparently strategizing for the Democratic Party while in the White House, right, as Obama's advisor. And while he was there, the Democrats did nothing but eat shit in elections, right? I mean, that's the funny part. And then he went to Chicago, and even though Chicago basically appoints its mayor, Rahm had to basically ate shit in Chicago too. I mean, it's unfucking believable what fucking failures all these guys are. Which, by the way, only comes to the fact that we found out after the election that Robbie Mook was apparently in charge of the Democrats' congressional elections. We said it last time. You guys need to give up on this fucking party. They've given up so hard on you. Just give up on these people, right? Robbie Mook, of all people. Bill Clinton, by the way, when Hillary Clinton lost in 2016 and they were in the Javits Center and they just got the news that she fucking lost a fucking, reality TV show host, fucking Bill Clinton, the only smart one in the room, stood up and said, fucking Robbie Mook, and stormed out of the room. And
but showed you how far they've fallen. Fucking 30 years ago, Bill Clinton, the Democrats have lost their touch because Bill Clinton turns on you like that. You piss off Bill Clinton like that, you'll be face down in a ditch in Arkansas somewhere 30 years ago. Robbie Mook is still doing his thing,
Yeah, you and Vince Foster, man, just gonna be sharing the same swamp outside of DC. But no, I mean, it really is astonishing that a guy who instantly was singled out as the fucking culprit, right, for this hilarious failure in 2016 is running the entire congressional strategy for the Democratic Party in 2020. And part of that is, I think, so after that election, so Bill Clinton...
We know it's not their fault, right?
Well, yeah. Well, and Bill Clinton, after the election, they very specifically had a meeting where Hillary Clinton literally sat down and said, "Who are we going to blame this on?" And they came up with Russia, right? Which is why we have Russiagate for fucking 4 straight years. But I think somehow in that interim, in the 4 years, they just started to believe their own bullshit. They were like, "No, it was Russia." Like it was Russia. When
No, it's the practice liars. You have to honor the lie,
Yeah.
Brian. You have to honor the lie. Why shouldn't Robbie Mook get another sweet gig? He did a great job. The Clinton campaign was one of the best, most progressive campaigns ever run. She was merely robbed.
Yeah. I mean, just astonishing. And speaking of failing up, like, I mean, this gets back to, we're kind of ping-ponging around here a little bit, but fucking Biden announced his COVID advisory board. And as somebody pointed out, it was like all doctors. And it's like, you have to like give the drug to people, right? Like, like somebody who's probably like experienced in logistics should probably be on this. But on the advisory board is goddamn Rahm Emanuel's brother, because of course the Democrats are nothing if not just a giant nepotism fucking racket. But his brother Ezekiel Emanuel was on there.
Ezekiel Emanuel?
Yes, the one who last summer penned an article about how basically Midsummer had it right and everybody should be killed at 75.
Yeah, cool. Well, are we certain this whole thing isn't a conspiracy led by Ezekiel Emanuel? Is he going to end up like this is part of his plan to euthanize everyone over 75 and become himself president of the United States?
Well, and people ask the question, like, how do Republicans believe, conspiracy theories like Pizzagate and shit? It's like, because Democrats do shit like this.
Seriously.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, how are you, as a normal human being, how are you supposed to read this? Right? But, I mean, just fucking astonishing. But the nice thing is if you aren't able to code, and if you're too young to be killed by the Emmanuel's murder machine that will be in every single city, there's suicide booths that they install in every city. If you're too young for that, maybe you can become a child laborer. And there was this amazing article in The Guardian, and by The Guardian I mean the Bill and Melinda Gates sponsored editorial, which in global development. So the Gates Foundation essentially sponsors a column in The Guardian where they post their freaks up there to put forward the Gates's like freakish fucking views. And they posted one this week that the title was "Child labor doesn't have to be exploitation. It gave me life skills." And fucking
hello.
So people rightfully clowned on it online. And The Guardian, instead of changing the content of the article, which matches the original headline, they just changed the headline to "Child labor is exploitation, but the household work I did as a child gave me life skills."
Huh.
But I think
so the Gates Foundation out there, supporting the developing world, coming up with new innovative strategies and toilets for how to get the global South out of intractable poverty. We've heard a lot of their good ideas before. None of them are end imperialism, but now really it sounds like with this article they're turning sort of their eye back on us, saying stop being mad about child labor. Right?
Well, that and so they find some woman from Africa to write this, right? Or stamp her name on it at least. And the whole thing is basically like, hey, look, it essentially calls child labor like a culture issue. It is like,
cool. So because child labor is done in non-white cultures, being against it is racist. I feel that. Yeah.
Well, the basic summary is, which I love this, we need to embrace the blurred lines and complexities of cultural norms. So if you're like, hey, I don't think that child should be in that textile mill, you're doing a no growth now. All right. I'm afraid we're going to need you to get with the HR department. You've done a no growth. But the thing that was sort of interesting about it is, I don't know if you guys remember this. I pulled up the cover. I'm looking at it right now. But Time Magazine 2005 had this like big issue where the whole issue was just one topic: how to end poverty. And it was focusing on ending poverty primarily in Africa, right? And it had such luminaries as Jeffrey Sachs, famous for ending poverty in Russia, Jeffrey Sachs, and Bono had a like an article in it. I mean, just all the people that if you want to end poverty in the third world, these are the ones you go to. But the thing that came up over and over again, particularly when talking about Africa, was that Africa had these like giant cities that were developing because Africa was experiencing and has been for the last 30 years a giant move from the countryside to the urban, right? Just like everywhere around the world is. And they were looking at it and saying like, how can we get factories into those cities? Basically the whole premise. Like right now, people are too poor in a lot of these countries and too undernourished and stuff to work in factories. How can we get them just well off enough to get them into that factory? And this child labor thing, I mean, it's sort of all of a piece, right? Which is, how can we use issues of poverty and things like that to hyper exploit labor in ever new and interesting ways? But it's good
Exciting.
stuff. Yeah, it's good, exciting stuff. Now, again, people might have forgotten this too, but real heads who like to follow elections, they don't even bother to vote in, like myself. I remember in, I think it was in 2016 when the Republicans had everybody running. At one point, Newt Gingrich had thrown his hat in the ring, and one of his big platform pieces was bring back child labor.
Yeah.
Like, you want to fund schools, maybe have the poor kids clean it as custodians. Like maybe,
Classic.
yeah, get rid of the lunch ladies or whatever. Have the poor kids do it.
Well, this is literally how. Look, this is how the whole game is played. Like, there are, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is just one outlet that takes, the enormous capital of our ruling class toward, and puts it towards shaping like policy, and this is how it's done, and giving even liberals ammunition for how to do things that on first glance seem reprehensible. Yeah, they're winning at it too. I mean, what is like for what it's not like there's really that our laws are that stringent about doing commerce with countries that have child labor.
Well, and interesting as the article points out too, right? In the US, for the cultivation of tobacco, you can use children as young as 14, which they do extensively, right? And they basically pointed out, like, yeah, like, see, I mean, hey, you guys got child labor too. And it's like, yeah, that's also bad.
Amazing.
But yeah, I mean, I think part of it is, I remember I had a history professor who was always fond of saying that like we live in a weird bubble of capitalism, and that capitalism's real face was the 19th century. And I think what we're seeing, in the last week of celebrating the Biden victory is a real desire to return to the 19th century, right? Like, how about we don't have regular employment? How about everybody is just contingent contract labor, right? How about child labor too? Those little kids that, right? They're like, hey, you guys are right. Like, two parents on like minimum wage incomes definitely cannot support a household. So get those kids to work. Maybe you need a third and fourth breadwinner. So get little, Timmy and little Johnny into the factory. It's, we're building that bridge to the 19th century, and I'm just very excited.
Well, I'm glad we have such luminaries as Bill and Melinda Gates to light the way.
Yeah.
Who could have imagined that a little thing called Windows would be what takes us back to the Gilded Age?
Well, if the children don't want to work in the factory, they should do what Bill Gates did and steal someone else's operating system. Secure funding because your parents are rich and have connections, and then jam that operating system down people's throats by violating monopoly laws. Cool. The good old fashioned way. But anyways, yeah, that's the thing too. The few times I'm ever anywhere near like Seattle Center and I pass by the Gates Foundation building, which is this monstrosity of fucking wealth just eating a whole city block. It's just amazing to drive by that and look at it and think about how, you know what, inside there are so many urban professionals with graduate degrees and stuff who are just coming out with new and interesting ways to justify child labor in the third being used by Nike and whatever, right? And it just warms the heart, you know. Good stuff. Glad that charity's around. Very funny.
What? Why the fuck did they run that? Like, why now? What?
This is, I'm telling you, the child labor thing is like that's a rich people thing, but that's a Gates Foundation deal. Like, I mean, the Gates Foundation is the editor of this column, right? I mean, that's the thing that probably is worth mentioning is the Gates Foundation this is just propaganda from them. Like, this is news releases. This is better understood as news releases from the Gates Foundation for you.
All right. So, as Brian said, this is in The Guardian, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, global development. Child labor is exploitation, but the household work I did as a child gave me life skills. Growing up in Africa taught me to be self-reliant and resilient. Putting children to work must be seen in local context. Aged 8, Tayambili would walk with her mother every day to fetch water. On her 2-kilometer return journey in 30 degrees Celsius heat, she would carry 20 liters in an aluminum bucket on her head. Is this a story problem?
Well, first off, for an American audience, like that, for all we know, she walked like 20 feet. And it was 50 degrees. Apparently, 30 degrees Celsius is 86 degrees.
Yeah, we're going to be tested on conversion later in this article. She would then help to pound maize in a mortar and prepare food for the family, typically fresh fish caught by her father on the lake. After the main...
So we're building like a very idyllic, right, image too. I mean, this is like a little bit of like noble savage shit, but okay, let's go.
Yeah. After the main and only meal of the day, Tayamba, meaning we have started in Chichewa, the national language of Malawi, in southeastern Africa, would take care of her baby sister. That young girl was me. Oh my God. Through a Western lens, some might view my experience as child labor. To me, I was learning life skills. 6 decades later, most people from this landlocked country still live in rural areas. Many are involved in agriculture for their livelihoods, including tobacco farming, so-called green gold for one of the world's poorest nations. Multinational companies make billions of dollars a year selling cigarettes in the US, Europe, and elsewhere. The tobacco is produced in tough conditions, much of it by children aged under 14.
Oh, yes, the really sympathetic tobacco industry. Great way to lead with this. I don't know. So I guess this is like a bait and switch happening here, like between like, look, I did these household chores that, were very hard because my family was very poor. But yet there were household chores that inevitably poor people are going to do, which, we might answer with, no, obviously it's not like anyone's place to come in and like regulate away child labor out of household chores. It is our place to have solidarity with humanity and end fucking poverty, you piece of shit. But then immediately it's flopping to corporate agriculture is like somehow the same thing. And no doubt just by using child labor and the original headline being like, hey guys, child labor is good, shut the fuck up. Obviously it's let's do it in factories as well. So this is just totally fraudulent.
Well, and let me give I was just like, hey, why don't we see what the child labor situation in Malawi is right now? And so this is from the U.S. Department of Labor. This is from 2019. In 2019, Malawi made a moderate advancement in efforts to eliminate the worst forms of child labor. The government elevated the Tobacco Commission to enforce the tobacco industry bill, which requires tobacco growers to report on efforts to eliminate child labor in tobacco farming and significantly increase funding of its labor inspectorate. However, children in Malawi continue to engage in the worst forms of child labor, including the harvesting of tobacco and commercial sexual exploitation. Well, now we know why the gates.
Wow.
By the way, now we know why the gates
Wow.
are into it.
Yeah. So basically, someone in the government in Malawi managed to pass what sounds like an incredibly tepid bill where they ask nicely for industry to cut back eventually on child labor. And this raised the hackles of the global elite. And the Gates Foundation was dispatched to, in probably multiple ways, but in one small part of the Phoenix program against these out of line legislators in Malawi, is this column.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, basically, they probably are just going into these tobacco fields and saying, all right, who talked? And if you raise your hand, you get put into like a Gates Foundation medical trial, essentially.
Well, it's like the paperwork says that, but it's really just the box from Bridge on the River Kwai.
All right, go ahead, Colin. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Child labor will continue until your cultural affect improves.
These practices are rightly considered exploitative, can be physically and mentally harmful, and detrimental to children's futures by keeping them out of school. So then this next paragraph has a picture of a kid who looks like maybe they're digging through dirt, and then it says 5 myths about child labor. Read more.
Oh Lord.
So very Starship Troopers.
By the way,
I'm doing my part.
Would you like to know more?
Oh my God. So I mean, in some ways this is meant to clown on the people in Malawi who are trying to crack down on child labor by look what the big white Western press is saying about you and how dumb you are for trying to how backward you are for
okay.
Trying to crack down on child labor.
So wouldn't you believe it? The 5 myths about child labor is also a Gates Foundation album. So a Gates Foundation press release.
Holy shit.
Myth number 1 is every form of child labor is bad.
Oh, no way.
Now, this is real neoliberal thought right here. Myth number 4, child labor is necessary. But he calls it a necessary evil, and they basically go on to agree, yeah, I mean, that it is pretty much a necessary evil.
So not a myth.
Yeah. Fucking rules. So Gates Foundation doing good work.
Wait, what are the other 3?
Oh, goddamn, I just clicked away. Hold on one sec. The others are Guardian, fix your fuck. God damn it. The Guardian deserves to die. Every this many pop-ups deserves to fucking die. Most child laborers work in factories. As they said, a lot of them work in tobacco fields. Checkmate, my friend.
A lot of them work in 30-degree heat and have to walk 1 million kilometers down rows of tobacco. Whatever that means.
Child laborers, they're toasted.
Yeah, as they point out, they're like, no, most of them work in agriculture.
Oh, man. Oh, yeah, they really need, what's his name?
Don Draper.
Don Draper on this campaign to save child labor in the developing world. Here's what we're going to do.
Well, that's what he did after he went to the commune and got centered again as he started working on child labor campaigns. But yeah.
I'm firing Bill and Melinda Gates.
But yeah, so they point out that actually, about 59% of child, labor is concentrated in agriculture.
Oh, guys,
just the labor of the antebellum South. Come on, man.
Like a little kid. Oh man, I just they should really. I want to see some interviews with these child laborers about how much they love working on the farm. Just like yeah. Oh my god.
So we also have child labor only exists in poor countries. Will be the other one where they assure you that it's got to be okay because Europe and the U.S. does it too. And amazing. Last one, child labor helps young people transition into paid work as adults, which they point out does not. So I guess that's another reason why it's good. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's just astonishing. But it is this idea. I'm part of the neoliberal sort of.
I hate it when I give my resume for a job when I want to transition into paid work as an adult, and they're like, what were you doing between the years 1990 and 2003? And I was like, I was in education as a child. And then, next, please.
Yeah. Well, I think too that basically you have to see this as part of the general neoliberal project of rolling back all the labor rights that were won through the labor movement, right? And they don't want to just do that at home, right? Because, the Gateses have their fingers in a lot of pots, including international ones. They want to do it abroad too. They want to do it in the imperial periphery as well, right? And this just seems to all be a piece of, I guess, normalizing. Hey guys, normalize child labor. All right. That's the tweet. Send.
Yeah, you're right, because they're totally trying to mystify it by painting it as this cultural feature of people who've been immiserated by like hundreds of years of empire.
Whose natural indigenous culture
was child labor,
have existed for hundreds of years under European colonialism.
Yeah. I mean, that's the part of it too, right? Is we're talking about the the so-called natural ways of the third world, and the other part of it is just this mystifying too, where the term exploitation never seems to come into these conversations, right? That the reason why child labor is used is so that one, they're can be exploited at a higher level than adults, and two, I mean, in the case of people who are doing like homework and things like that, right? So that the adults can be exploited at a higher level, right? The children are brought in to do the labor care work, right? But yeah, the exploitation never seems to be in this conversation. It's very fascinating.
It's good, actually. So it continues. Yeah. However, where do you draw the line between what is internationally deemed a crime and a natural process of transferring skills? Is international concern on child rights relevant to Africa?
And again, this is blurring the line again, because they basically are saying, hey, look, where do you draw the line between chores and international labor crimes? And it's like, probably where the criminal code begins would be my guess.
Basically, it's saying,
I was gonna pick a line.
Listen, these people, they're not like us. Their brain pans are more suited to servile work. And if you don't start teaching them as children, they'll put those warped brain pans to use for only crime and vice. I mean, that's what I'm hearing.
Hey, what did I say? Science is back, baby.
Yeah, in a big way.
It is. There's like so that's literally the exact argument from the antebellum South, right? Yeah. Like there was this great book that came out that was called
it's called Racism.
Yeah. There's this great book, academic book called When Slavery Was Called Freedom. And it was basically all about like the way they would frame this argument. They'd be like, no, like slavery is freedom for the slave, because essentially like their brain pan doesn't hold enough marbles. So therefore, like if we just let them loose on the world, I mean, that would just overwhelm them. They wouldn't be able to give themselves to God because they'd be so overwhelmed. So this is like the best thing, actually. But, miraculously, the best thing always seems to be the thing that benefits capital. And it's just a total rehash of that fucking argument.
Some argue that child labor perpetuates poverty, unemployment, illiteracy, population growth, and other social problems. With the exception of large organizations putting children to work, local context is everything. Mahatma Gandhi forged
to tell those nosy busybodies to keep their faces out of my sweatshop.
Having mentioned all the classical arguments against child labor, I will never mention them again. I will not refute them. Now an anecdote about Gandhi.
Oh, by the way, I noticed that they aren't going to quote anything about, Gandhi spent a little time in Africa with the Indian diaspora.
Oh, did he ever?
And I love that they're not going to mention any of the things that he thought about the African people while he was there. That
kind of like the things this article is implicitly arguing, that they have like small brain pans and must be molded into workers from a young age, or they will default to crime and vice. Yeah, I mean that's basically a quote from Gandhi. Well,
Yeah,
he was in South Africa.
Yeah, I mean the Gates Foundation has that painted on the hallway wall, you know,
Yeah.
but they forgot to put the article because they see it every day, so like everybody knows that.
Mahatma Gandhi forged the way for Indian independence. The father of his nation knew a thing or two about self-reliance. Our children should not be so taught as to despise labor, he wrote in a weekly journal in 1921. There is no reason why a peasant's son, after having gone to school, should become useless as he does become as an agricultural laborer.
Love to grind up my children in the satanic mills to ensure that they don't despise labor as an adult.
Yeah, it's amazing the logic. You could just replace labor and put like having sex with children, and the same arguments would like unfold.
By the way, another thing that Gandhi actually liked, but well, I mean, not to talk about Gandhi and his, his
Gandhi. He was truly the Bill Gates of his time.
That's what people mean when they say that Gates is Gandhi-like. But yeah, I mean, one, could you think that maybe there's a difference between 1921 and today? Since we're all about cultural differences in this article, maybe there's a historical difference between 1921 and today. And also, again, it's just so on the nose to quote Gandhi and then be like, also, don't look into his stuff about Africa, guys. Just maybe leave that on the side. I mean,
yeah, it's got a Herzogian vibe here. You're going to see in this next paragraph. So
is the dictionary quoted?
No, but there's like a refutation of your own argument, basically. So there's another little aside here that says Global Dispatch. Sign up for a different worldview. What do you think? Should we?
Oh yeah.
I want this downloaded directly to my brain. So it continues. Yes, a different era and a different continent. But
some might say stupid to even bring up. Only invites ridicule of my argument.
But after almost 100 years, Africa's single most important economic activity is still agriculture. 2/3 of its working population is employed in food and cash crop production. Malawi.
Basically, that's because they haven't allowed enough child labor in Africa. That's why Africa has remained like underdeveloped industrially. Don't look into any other causes.
Yeah, right. Just like California or like the whole middle of America.
Yeah, not a high enough content of child labor in Africa. Definitely not the continual like exploitation and theft of all of Africa's resources.
In Malawi, it is 80%, according to the World Bank. Children, the farmers of tomorrow.
Farmers of tomorrow are the farmers of today.
Irish 5-year-olds are the industrial hands of tomorrow.
Play a crucial.
God forbid children be, trained to be cogs in the capitalist machine in fucking schools.
Yeah, this is real on-the-job training.
Yeah. Could you imagine though if like this was just like Coney giving his argument for child soldiers, right, and being like, look, children are just the soldiers of tomorrow, so why not get started today?
We're wasting time.
Yeah.
They play a crucial role in the rural economy. They learn skills by observation and participating in activities such as building houses, fishing, preparing food, all essential for survival, and definitely all things that are impossible to learn without being a child laborer.
Yeah.
Again, like we're talking about things that are done in the home and in the community, in poor communities, and like comparing it to like child wage slavery for corporations.
Yeah. Basically,
you keep trying to paper over that gap there, and it ain't working.
Yeah, this is the article's whole sort of reason for being, right? Its whole thing is basically like, oh, you're saying that, you know, children can't be exploited in horrifying tobacco fields for the sake of R.J. Reynolds. Well, you must not want your kids to do chores. It's like, what the fuck are
Yeah,
you
I
talking
think the purpose of an article like this is, you know, as a PR test.
about?
It's like, let's see how, because all the shittiest things we believe, all the like, you know, learned truths that our neoliberal hell, the citizens of our neoliberal hell, like, just believe, like the water they're swimming in. They all started like with shit like this, with people putting up some bird brain fucking argument and seeing if it stuck, and the shit that sticks becomes what gets like just bashed into the brains of all the idiots on this planet. Just be how they think the world works forevermore, you know?
No, it's like when you have a like shitty fast food job and you're like scared of being fired in the beginning. So you like make the hamburgers good, but then you like slowly make shitty ones and nobody says anything and you realize, why am I bothering? And you just make them shittier and shittier. This is the test. They're handing you the shit sandwich and seeing if you'll accept it. And if you do, oh, is there more coming down the road, right?
Ooh, these skills are transferred from elder family members to children, from mother to daughter, father to son. But from an outsider's perspective, these at home chores can be viewed negatively. All right, here's your definition, Greg. The International Labor Organization defines child labor as work that deprives children of their childhood, their potential, and their dignity, and that is harmful to physical and mental development. At the most extreme, it involves child slavery, separation from families, or exposure to life threatening hazards. Other examples may involve children being kept home from school in order to keep the household.
So it sounds like she's about to tear down this definition of child labor, and that should really just be seen as an example of like the problem with leaving the libs to defend the rights and dignity of humanity. You know, like they're gonna have shit like this that doesn't stand up in the face of like a determined capital class.
Yeah.
Child labor is not new. To varying extents, it has existed throughout history. In 19th century Britain, Victorian factories and mines exploited children on a massive scale. Indeed, it was a worldwide problem, not just during industrialization, but throughout the last century. Today, contrary to popular belief, most child laborers are employed by their parents rather than in manufacturing or the formal economy.
Yeah, the other part of it too is if you want to learn about how much fun that was, I mean, you can read like any Marx or Engels and hear about what a great time everybody was having in Victorian Britain. I will
trying to have it both ways, trying to go like, yeah, no, to be sure, the bad child laborer is bad. But what I'm trying to do is say that like things that people out there want to label child labor are really not the same thing. We need, we need a new definition.
They're micro internships.
But I will point out that hilariously, if you go to the International Labor Organization, their definition of child labor is much longer and extensive than weirdly what was quoted in this article, including things like forcing children to work below the minimum age of work, of labor, right? And all this kind of stuff. So they actually do talk about issues of exploitation and stuff like that as well. But again, can't have that in this conversation. Let's just keep it to about chores.
Yeah.
In Africa, where many areas have no social security or social services
I wonder why that is.
Yeah, that's really weird.
Let's not get into it, though.
To support the vulnerable, families are responsible for educating and training the next generation to become capable adults. Those with good life skills become self-reliant and resilient because they can support themselves against all odds.
Bootstrapping.
Wow. Wow.
There's an African proverb: "Pull yourself up by your bootstraps."
Yeah. And the other African proverb is anyone who doesn't is because they are
They don't have good life skills.
shiftless and
Yeah.
devoid of life skills. Yeah.
They deserve what's coming to them, which is child labor.
Jesus.
They'll be wishing they were child laborers when we're done with them as adults.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Again, the whole argument seems to be, hey, look, Europe and the United States worked very hard for centuries to underdevelop and exploit and rob the shit out of Africa. And because of that, look, your kids just have to become child laborers. I don't know what to tell you. That's the only way to resolve this situation, is to then turn the children of Africa into child laborers for R.J. Reynolds. Again, the thing that we keep forgetting is that this is, in Malawi specifically, this is for the tobacco industry.
There is an African proverb: by crawling, a child learns to stand. Without these life skills, the young adult is the laughingstock of the community, dependent on others for food, clothing, and even shelter.
Jesus Christ.
The degree to which this is internalized, like the logic of basically 21st century neoliberalism, is incredible. Like she's basically talking about a meritocracy.
Yeah. She's literally saying bootstrap it.
Yeah. And
the problem with Africa is not enough bootstrapping.
Not enough child labor.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's come down to. The literal argument of this is the reason Africa is underdeveloped or poor is because there isn't enough child labor. They just didn't have a high enough quantity.
Also, building a structure for you to view it in, a lens for you to view it that is backwards, that flips the image like looking into a spoon, right? Like it's like instead of asking why is Africa overall poorer than the global north, and why are people in these positions of having to exploit their own children for their labor, or send their children to be exploited for their labor for the pittance that it returns, instead of asking like what structural things are causing that, just learn to love the exploitation.
Mm-hmm. Well, instead of reading the widely available online book by Walter Rodney, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, try just going into the tobacco fields and doing a little better, working a little harder.
I have been involved in development in sub-Saharan Africa for most of my working life. Local context is the hallmark of effective development work. What works in one community may have no place in another, and an appreciation of diversity and cultural norms is key to success.
Weird, that was the antebellum South's argument too.
Yeah, also, how you doing on developing Africa? I mean, this is like the British Empire's argument too, right? It's like, we're no. I'm here doing it. We're doing the development.
Yeah, we're doing the work.
It doesn't work for various, cultural reasons. Like we want to build our, we want to give them the steam locomotive and develop their transport, but we just can't figure out how to make it work culturally.
I mean, this is the big part of the sort of, not the only, but one of the big reasons for the use of sort of race and racism and in the imperial context, right? Is at some point when you're creating this sort of white man's burden kind of mythology around your imperial adventures, eventually somebody's asked the question, you've been doing all this work to develop the third world. How come it still sucks ass? It's still poor shit. And to that, all you can say is racism. Definitely not what we're doing there. Like, it's we're definitely not creating the problem. That's for sure. It must be some other mysterious ingrown factor.
It's the misshapen brains of the natives.
Yeah,
totally. I mean, I don't know why all the natives die every time we run into
it's innate to their biology.
Yeah. Every time we meet the natives, they die. I don't know why that is. Probably their biology. If I had to guess.
Over the past decade, there has been a significant shift towards localization. Local experts and communities receiving aid have become much more involved in development rather than having values imposed from the West. Isn't that literally what's happening?
Yeah, because what they mean by localization is the West essentially in exchange for getting loans from, people like the Gates Foundation, but also from the World Bank and stuff. The governments of these countries have to dismantle, programs like social service programs and stuff like that have to be dismantled. And so then the money goes to groups on the ground. And it just turns out those groups on the ground are literally like Gates Foundation freaks. And this is called localization, not exploitation, apparently.
Well,
Or
isn't it a coincidence, though, that like all these different local cultures across the developing world all have the exact culturally specific belief in the use of child labor? And isn't it interesting how actually, their main cultural norm is their own poverty and desperation? So that's what they're doing here, is they're trying to use the language of like woke, like cultural, like diversity, cultural relativity, to describe what they're actually selling as a universal cultural trait of anyone who's poor, and that trait is poverty, which is, and essentially you always comes back to this essentially conservative, like all the way back to like Burkean logic of like, this shit is cultural. This is where, like you're saying, racism comes from, because that's what they're saying. They're saying like the desperation and poverty is their culture, and that's why we have to do child labor.
Yeah.
Everywhere. In all these culturally specific ways, everywhere.
Yeah.
Turns out you're gonna be
poverty shit, right?
Yeah, you're gonna be real surprised, white America, when it turns out you actually have a culture that embraces child labor too. You may not know it now, but I've studied many cultures. Of all the cultures I've studied throughout my life, I've never actually seen a culture so poor, desperate, and enthralled with child labor as America. We're just waiting to get back to our roots.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, that, and I love too this idea of it's the bootstrapping idea too of like, well, what makes these people impoverished is they didn't do enough child labor to learn the vital skills and stuff necessary to have the kind of like wealth and development that the first world has. The kind of job skills and life skills that people like the Trump kids and Biden's kids have that have led them to be, self-made millionaires.
Well, when you're selling it to liberals, the exploitation is always just a prerequisite for development.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, no, really all we need, all these poor, backward, culturally specific peoples of the developing world with their faulty brain pans need is to commit to child exploitation for just one generation. But if they could all get on board for just that one generation, for a solid 20 years of really brutal child exploitation, you'd emerge with a whole new culture of self-starters who were on the come up, and you'd have, Silicon Valleys popping up all across the Sahara.
Yeah. It was the child labor situation just outside of San Francisco. That's what created Silicon Valley.
Yeah, dude, that's how they all got their work ethic. Yeah. That's how they all became rise and grind guys, is they were they had a machete and were hacking bananas out of fucking trees at 6,
I can't help but think of John Carpenter's comments about Kurt Russell here, but that would support this argument. So I'm going to keep those to myself. Programs are now run by talented and empowered national staff
who were once children working in the tobacco fields.
Yeah.
The beneficiaries are no longer passive recipients of grant funds, but are part of the solution.
Welfare queens. It's literally a welfare queens argument. Jesus fucking Christ. I hate this country so much. I fucking hate the United States.
Defining the challenge and how best to tackle it.
Oh, That, the classic liberal meritocratic strategy of identifying a problem before you try to solve it. Fucking innovation.
Yeah.
The essence of innovation right there.
Hey, if they hadn't invented that in 1994, I mean, we wouldn't be in the place we're in right now. So thank you. That's the kind of innovation that gets Robbie Mook another job running campaigns.
Yeah, I think Microsoft got the patent on that when they bought Netscape Navigator or some shit.
Involving parents enables them to make the right decisions. My advice has always been that children should have the chance to go to school, as I did 60 years ago, to play and to act their age. However, we cannot tell mothers and fathers how to parent or what to do in their own homes.
I mean, I'm pretty sure.
Disgusting.
Yeah, it's like I'm pretty sure that actually in most countries that like, no, you absolutely can tell parents like what to do with their kids.
Yeah, and also, we're just saying no, these cultures want to do this, not because of course it's part of the way they think of doing life, because they're poor and desperate and this is what they need to do to survive. Like, God forbid anyone like dream of anything better for the children of the world. Oh, fuck, man, like that's really fucking bleak.
Well, that, and I get why Bill Gates wants the parents to be in charge of what happens inside their own homes with their kids.
There should be a counselor on every factory floor, and they should do parent conferences once a quarter.
Understanding the distinction between exploitation and transfer of life skills is critical for development workers stepping into any community.
Cool. Still looking for it, you piece of shit. You haven't identified that at all here. You've mentioned school, which is a place to, teach kids life skills, including, you can teach kids in school about like jobs in factories.
Yeah.
Fucking Christ.
We need to embrace the blurred lines and complexities of cultural norms. The world should not be painted with one brush.
And all blurred lines. It's just so hazy. It's like it's like this is Heart of Darkness, right? I mean, I told you, Brian, I never really understood what Heart of Darkness was getting at, but I gather like cultural confusion was a part of it. The sort of terror of going deeper and deeper into like a cultural fantasia that you can't understand, and I feel like that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah. I mean, it's the terrifying journey into a place that you've irrevocably destroyed, but also don't understand it because you've destroyed it, and now you're scared.
So, that is Heart of Darkness. Then you're looking at it's about someone, a settler coming in and surveying deeper and deeper into what has become like a cultural wasteland, a culture turned upside down and inside out and destroyed by the very direct but never witnessed actions of the settler himself and his people, and then seeing only the degradation and never the original form.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what this is. This woman is saying, like, you gotta, you can't tell these people what to do because this is their culture. And it's like, you did this. You're the people you work for did this. Like, there are very few indigenous cultures, and untouched by capital. They should absolutely have self-determination, but to sit here and go like, well, in a context, this person's talking about a political context where they're not going to get that, right?
Yeah.
So like,
nor is it desirable.
Right. So we're not talking about a project here that is about pulling back imperialism and giving self-determination to the exploited peoples of the underdeveloped world, right? No, we're saying the class relationships and the colonial and financial relationships are going to stay exactly what they are, and in that context, you shouldn't, when you get angry at child exploitation, you're really getting angry at these exploited cultures, not capital itself, but these indigenous cultures.
Yeah, I
Fuck
mean,
you. Fuck off. Go fuck yourself.
yeah, exactly. I mean,
I don't have to listen
it's
to this shit.
yeah, it's a way to blame everything except for the actual economic system that the people are living under, right? And Marx, going all the way back in Capital, talked extensively about capitalism's effect on its deleterious effect on the family, right? And talked extensively about the fact that, like, look, families aren't the product of some innate genetic culture or something. They're the product of the world they live in. And if you live in a horrifying exploitative planet, or right, in a horrifying exploitative system, yeah, the father becomes the despot of the household who puts his children to work just like the factory owner does, right? And it's like, that's not good, though. You shouldn't celebrate that. That's not developing a work ethic. That's just exploitation, right? And how exploitation rolls through every rung of society and wrings out any humanity that could possibly exist. And I think generally on the left, at least, we're supposed to see that as bad. Now, at the Gates Foundation, apparently this is extremely desirable. So just wonderful work they're doing over there. And thanks as always.
Cool. Yeah, watch out for those blurred lines, everybody. I don't know any of the lyrics to blurred lines. I'll be doing that now. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.